Welcome fans to a new edition of Marked Out, the Red Scorpion, Mike Martinez, and this time we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite heel turns. Right off this top of the list actually starts with Tatanka joining the $1 Million Corporation back in 1994. It was when the swerve was on Lex Luger. Everyone thought Lex Luger was going to join the $1 Million Corporation. I actually thought Lex Luger was going to join the $1 Million Corporation. I think I was like 14, so I mean, hello, it was Mark. But Tatanka ends up swerving, joins the $1 Million Corporation, has a pretty decent run, probably his more decent run as a wrestler in WWE, before he eventually fizzled out. But it was a pretty good heel turn. Next on the list was when old Tugboat joined up with the Earthquake and became Typhoon. They formed the Natural Disasters, and they were some natural disasters. I think they weighed in at a combined weight of like 800 pounds or some, maybe even 900 pounds, almost a ton, whatever. It was heartbreaking because at the time, you know, you Tugboat, he wore the red and yellow, the Where's Waldo, he had the sailor hat, he was just, everybody loved him. I seen him live a couple times in Sacramento, and the Earthquake, you just hated him. He just seemed like a hateable creature. And then when they joined together as Natural Disasters with Jimmy Hart, the annoying mouth of the South, that was just it. Just crushed you as a fan at the time. Next was when Shawn Michaels turned on Marty Jannetty, threw him through the barbershop window. The Rockers came to a conclusion at that point. I'll never forget that because I just remember them looking like they were going to reunite. Everything was kind of, you know, Shawn was kind of going his own way at the time. The team was losing. They were having struggles, and they eventually made up on the show. And Bobby Heenan, his commentary was, oh yeah, they need each other. One can't do anything without the other. It's just da 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 da. And then Shawn super kicks Marty after they raise each other's hands, and then Bobby Heenan goes, I knew he was going to do that all along. I knew he was going to do that. It was just classic Bobby Heenan. But it was sad because I always loved the Rockers, but Shawn Michaels ends up becoming Heartbreak Kid and has probably the best career ever in wrestling. Next was when Curt Hennig turned on Ric Flair in the Four Horsemen. I believe it was War Games 98 or somewhere around that neighborhood. Curt Hennig came into WCW. He had been Ric Flair's advisor in WWE, so their relationship reunited here at this point. Everyone was like, oh my God, here's Curt Hennig. He's in WCW. He's joining Ric Flair's old pal. Arn Anderson can't wrestle anymore, so he gave him his spot in the Four Horsemen as the enforcer. It was just incredible, and then he slams Ric Flair's head in the cage and joins the NWO, so it just all went to hell. But it was a huge swerve, a huge heel turn. Next was when Stone Cold turns on the fans when he wrestled The Rock back at WrestleMania X7 and joins up with who else but the boss, Vince McMahon. Who would have ever thought those two, who had been at each other's throats for years and years and years and years, would actually be on the same team? It led into some very comical vignettes and backstage segments, and the Kurt Angle with the little tiny cowboy hat and all those Kumbaya, My Lord songs that Stone Cold couldn't sing but insisted he could. It was very comical, and so I guess it needed to happen at the time, but it swerved a lot of people, and definitely yours truly as well. Next is when Seth Rollins turned on the Shield and joined up with the Authority. I think that no one saw this coming. I certainly didn't. I got back into WWE right around 2012, when the Shield was running rampant on everybody. They were just strong, and I was really digging them. I thought they were a great three-man team. It had been a while since we've seen a three-man stable in wrestling at all, so it was great to see them. And then Seth Rollins just killed it all and turned on his brothers and joined the Authority, and actually ended up having a pretty decent career after that, and still to this day. Next was when Bret Hart turned on America back in 1997, and of course everyone knows I'm a huge Bret Hart mark, but it was really hard to see this happen because Bret was just such a hero for many years. But then Vince came to him with the idea about turning heel, and Shawn was turning face, or I don't remember, Stone Cold was turning face, and the company was going into the Attitude Era, a different direction, and they needed some differences in their personalities, and they needed Bret to turn heel. And at first he was against it, but he thought, yeah, I'll give it a try. Just explosive. It was so great. It was the first time, and probably the only time, that a Canadian or a foreign wrestler was heel in America, but face everywhere else around the world. And it was just incredible. It was something that WWE probably can never replicate again. And it was just so great because Bret just went with it. He had all that anger that had built up for just different things. The fans were starting to boo him anyways. He couldn't understand why they were cheering the likes of Stone Cold. Why were they cheering Shawn and DX and stuff like that? Because they were just so different than WWE used to be. And it was real emotion, and it came out so good on TV. And it was definitely a huge swerve. Next was when HBK turned on Hulk Hogan back in 2005. I think this one was it was definitely one of those, did I just really see what I just saw? It was when Hulk Hogan came back, had his last run with the WWE, in ring anyways. Him and HBK, they had never crossed paths because Hulk Hogan was always up here, HBK was always down here. Well, things had switched a long time. before Hulk Hogan returned, and Shawn Michaels was up here, but he needed to make sure he was up here. So by turning on Hogan, it gave him the opportunity to have a match at SummerSlam to where he would hope to beat Hulk Hogan and prove he was the best. It didn't happen, and so he's still stuck with, hey, Hogan's better than me. It sucks. But then that's because Hogan refused a job. And sound familiar, Sean? Didn't you do that a couple of times? Anyways, huge heel turn. AJ Styles turns on John Cena on Raw 5/30/2016. That was just recently. It was huge because AJ came in as a huge face. Everyone knew him as a face, the face of TNA for many, many years. And he was actually working heel with the Bullet Club in ROH and in New Japan. So he had already been heel. But coming into WWE, the fans couldn't help but cheer him. He was awesome. He's phenomenal. And then he turns on the biggest face in the company, John Cena, and reforms the club. And everybody's just like, wait, what just happened? I like it. I think it gives AJ a new direction. It gives him some pizzazz in the WWE, and I think he's got a great, great career in WWE ahead of him as a heel now. Finally on my list was when Hulk Hogan turned on the Macho Man to join up with the NWO back at Bash at the Beach 1996. No one thought that Hulk Hogan would ever be heel, and I don't even think Hulk Hogan thought that he would be heel. But Bischoff approached him about the idea. Hall and Nash were coming in as outsiders. Who else knew more about being outsider in WCW than Hulk Hogan, who was the outsider when he first got there in '94? It was huge. Didn't like Hulk Hogan up until then. Started liking him then because I loved the attitude. But definitely probably the most surprising heel turn of all time in wrestling history was that moment right there. So hope you liked him. Join us for the next Marked Out, and stay tuned for Mad Wrestling Minutes and other shows that we put out. This has been the Red Scorpion, Mike Martinez. Like, subscribe, and we will see you next time.